We are back once again with Erika of thecricket.com, our favorite
Lori,
newspaper from
Lori,
what?
she has a newspaper, a real newspaper. She
I
doesn't
get it
just have a
delivered.
website.
Yeah.
It's you open it up, you read it. It's got obituaries, it's got police notes, it's got Greg Federspiel. It's a real newspaper with real paper.
It's got letters to the editor. You want the
Letters to
hard
the
copy
yes.
just to keep
There you
going
go.
through that over and over again. Yeah.
Exactly. It's old timey like that.
Right.
Well, anyway, Erika's back to talk about all things Manchester by the Sea and Essex. Coming at us from the newsroom. How are you, Erika?
Hello, Heather and Corey. Hey.
Okay, so a lot going on. Right off the top, what is going on in Manchester for Memorial Day? There's always big events happening there.
Yeah, I don't know if we've been through the last three together. And Manchester was the only town in Cape Ann that continued its in-person festivities during COVID. They just did it outside and they scaled it back quite a bit. But now everybody's back. And in different ways. Manchester is in full bloom this year, which is great. Everything is back. The parade is back. The waterside ceremony, the harborfront ceremony at the American Legion Hall is back, which is first thing in the morning. And then, of course, the big ceremony at Rosedale Cemetery, which is really the big thing. That's where everyone sort of coalesces and comes together. And then they move on and do the rest of the things. So it's a full boat of activities in Manchester, starting at 8:45 in the morning at the American Legion Hall, which is behind the town hall. The full ceremony, full regalia, and then they're going to have, the scouts and everyone's doing the full parade. And they're going to end at Rosedale Cemetery. It's not really where they end; it's where most people think they end because that's the big ceremony. But then they go on afterwards, and they literally hit all the cemeteries so that they can sort of do the chaplain takes his job very seriously, and that's Bruce Heisey. Over in Essex, they are not going to have a parade. But they are going to have a ceremony at Memorial Park, which is what they did last year. It's going to be very, the same thing. Color Guard is going to come out and they're going to have a proper ceremony. And that's at Memorial Park at 9 o'clock in the morning behind Town Hall, in Memorial Park. Yeah. So, or right next to Town Hall on Martin Street. So those are the two things going on. Feels good to kind of be doing our thing.
Erika, is it the skydiver, is that Memorial Day or is that July 4th in Manchester? Is that still going on?
No, the flying Elvises.
Yeah.
Yeah, flying Elvises. No, that's the 4th of July, which I can't wait for the 4th of July because there's a lot of stuff going on. It's like everyone's getting the let out. Like I think Beverly Farms is having its fireworks, I believe, on West Beach, and I know that Manchester is having its fireworks too. So there's going to be, usually they toggle back and forth, but everyone's getting out. I don't know if they have the flying Elvises. I'll have to ask, and it's not really the Elvises anymore, but I have to ask Cheryl Marshall, who's the head of the Manchester Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
I just think it's really funny, Corey, that you thought that there would be flying Elvises on Memorial Day.
Well,
I just knew that they had the skydiver landing over in the park over there in Manchester.
Yes. On Memorial Day?
And he didn't say the Elvises because that would be disrespectful.
I didn't say that. Right. Was it always the Elvises though?
No, it was years ago. They were flying Elvises. Like I want to say in the 90s, there were many of them, and they'd go in. It was such an awesome thing to watch. Cool. Watch them do.
Yeah. So okay. Well, the other big news, Erika, of course, is there is a special town meeting that's just a couple weeks away.
Yes, it's going to be on June the 11th. I feel like we just had our annual town meeting because guess what? We did. And that's Manchester, by the way. Special town meeting on Saturday, June the 11th. There's going to be, and it's in the afternoon, and it's going to be at the new Memorial School. There's going to be 12 articles on the warrant, which is, a rather lot of them. But everything that they're going to be addressing has to do with zoning. And this is all of the work that's been done. I mean, honestly, this was first thought it would be on a special town meeting, the fall town meeting last year. So this has been something that has been sort of parsed out to make it a little more digestible with regard to COVID and COVID restrictions and not wanting to have long town meetings with big complicated issues. So here we're about to finish up something that's literally been in the works for the last 2.5 years. This is the thing that we've been talking about, the planning board's recodification process, which is where you go through the zoning, the zoning rules for the town, what you can do and what you can't, and what's and where. And they've recodified it, recoding, recodification. And it's a process that every single municipality in the state goes through every 10 years or so. And the reason you have to go through it is because incremental changes that happen to the zoning bylaw over a long period of time results in exactly what you think it would result in, which is a lot of complicated things, a lot of patchwork, a lot of things that might not be legal anymore, by the way, because the rules change, the big rules at the state level. You're not allowed to do things anymore. And also just confusion, just things that just don't belong in one place, they belong in another. You need to streamline things. And as a result, you have a document that's very unwieldy, hard to understand, doesn't feel like it's very relevant or modern. So that's what they've been going through. Now, there's a lot. So that's 11 out of the 12 articles on the warrant have to do with recodification. And the planning board's been going through this with a specialist, because you can't just do it on your own. There are legal experts who, that's all they do, is work with municipalities to understand what is the proper way, that your your zoning should be. And we've actually used the best guy in the state, this guy, Mark Bobrowski. He's pretty good. He's been working with the town for a long time. So we're going to go through it. So that's what they're going to be voting on. There's a lot of things that are going to be simplified. There's not as many things that are going to be by special permit. When you make everything by special permit, what you basically are saying is, if I want to have a swimming pool, I have to get a special permit, hire a lawyer, and go before the zoning board of appeals and open yourself up to your neighbors or anybody saying that they don't want you to build their swimming pool on your own property, right? Mm. So in this case, things like, and guess what? Swimming pools are in there. If you want to build a swimming pool now, you have, as a matter of right, the ability to put in a swimming pool. As long as you conform with all the rules and all the laws, as long as you get a building permit and the building inspector comes and says you can do it. And oh, by the way the rules work right now, if you want to build a swimming pool and you get a building permit and your neighbors don't like it, there's a 20-day period where you can appeal it. Anybody can appeal a building inspector's, approval of something. So that's the kind of thing they're going after. The other big thing that's going to change, and it's sort of a by right thing, is this thing we've been talking about for a while, which is accessory dwelling units, which is ADUs, which is essentially an in-law apartment. It's an attached apartment. And in this case, if it's 900 feet or under, square feet or under, you would be able, and you have to live there. It's got to be one of the units has to be owner occupied, There's all these sorts of things, but you'd be able to have an in-law apartment. Now, this is a really powerful thing for things like affordability. This isn't affordable housing, but it's affordability. Imagine if you're getting older and you have kids and you don't need a big house anymore, and you want to have an accessory dwelling unit, then you can move in here, and you want your child and your grandkids to live next door because you want less to take care of. You don't want to cut the lawn anymore. And you'd rather be with your family. You'd rather have your family close. This is the perfect format for that. Or on the other side of life, if you're a young couple and you want to move to Manchester and you're just starting out, it's kind of nice to have an accessory dwelling unit and to be able to have a tenant come in here and soften the blow of your monthly mortgage. And it kind of gets you on your feet a little bit. And that's sort of the beauty of accessory dwelling units. Of course, up on Smith's Point, where all the grand golden set, the Gilded Age set is, they have a lot of accessory dwelling units there for au pair apartments for their nannies and things like that. That's a long tradition in Manchester. It's all over the place. And yet accessory dwelling units have only been able to be had up until this point by special permit. You have to get a lawyer, you have to go and you have to argue. And by the way, you have to have a double lot even to apply for a special permit. So anyway, I'm going on and on. That's what we're going for.
This has just been stuff. Yeah, Erika, it's been the year of zoning on Cape Ann.
Yeah.
Listen,
Unbelievable.
let me tell you, it's been the year of zoning across the United States of America.
Yeah.
There is a massive problem with the fact that we've had I mean, honestly, you want to know what it is? You had the largest generation in the history of the United States of America, the baby boomers, which all came online and all decided they were going to have beautiful houses with their kids in about, I don't know, 1991. And they all tore down post-war single small homes, and they built big houses for themselves. And now they all had kids, and now the millennial generation are all trying to do the same thing, but they don't want the same things their parents wanted, and their parents want to downscale. So there's like, it's almost like musical chairs. It's like this massive game of musical chairs in the United States of America. And affordability is a problem for sure, because millennials are all buying, and they're driving up these housing properties. There's also just technology and money looking to invest in places across the United States, and that's a whole different thing. But these people are looking for houses, they're driving up the prices. So at the same time, affordability for anybody is a problem, but then also smaller format houses. I keep saying that word, but that phrase, but smaller. People want smaller. And by definition, if it's smaller, it's more affordable. It doesn't mean that you need affordable housing. It means I want something that's simpler and just easier. So you're right. That's exactly what's going on.
I think Gloucester really needed you on the city council side for the past 2 months, Erica, because this is just what they were trying to sell as zoning amendments, and it all got defeated. But I have a question for you. How are the people in the town of Manchester learning about these amendments? Is there any sort of advance, just education as to what they're going to be? Because it sounds like it may have been simplified, but it's still going to be a lot to digest. It's this special town meeting, right?
A lot to digest. The planning board has had a lot of, first of all, anybody who says that this has been going on, in the dead of night without any, public outreach has been completely wrong. That's completely wrong. The planning board has been very public. They've had a lot of public sessions, a lot of input, all that other stuff. They have created a document that is on the website, on the town's website, where you can go and you can see all the changes. They've come out with sort of easier kind of tables and things like that, just to make it easier to kind of understand, because you're absolutely right, Heather. It doesn't matter how much time you spend on it. It's still complicated. It's still complicated. So they've done that. They're considering sending something out to every household, I know that, to just basically say, here's a QR code, go to the website, learn about this, ask us questions, all this stuff. So there's been a lot of that as well that's been going on. So yeah, they've been trying their best. At the same time, it is complicated. They also at the town meeting, in an earlier town meeting, they took care of the streamlining stuff, so that now all they're worried about is passing the guts, the core stuff, the real meat of the changes. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that does answer. And have you heard any sort of friction in town regarding these changes? I mean, has there been any buzz about it?
Yeah, there's you always get sort of a noisy minority of people. I mean, listen, we'll call it what it is. There's a tremendous amount of NIMBYism everywhere. Manchester doesn't hold doesn't corner the market on NIMBYism, which is not in my backyard. And literally, like, honestly, I want to say something. There was somebody who, I won't say who, but somebody in a public forum said, oh my gosh, Gordon Conwell in, the Gordon Conwell campus was announced that they're going to sell their campus. And that's a beautiful campus, actually, by the way, it's rather large. And there's parts of Gordon Conwell that go on to Hamilton. It's sort of deep in the woods there. And so somebody said, and I'm sure she said something positive, but you know what she said? She said, well, part of the property is in Manchester, so maybe we build something over there on affordable housing, a 40B project, and it'll count for Manchester, Hamilton, and Essex. The only problem is it wouldn't.
Right.
Because guess what? All of that inconvenience, of traffic impact, environmental impact, all that stuff, that happens in Hamilton. So it's kind of like saying, it's kind of like that person who got up in Essex town meeting last year, their annual town meeting a year ago. Somebody got up in the middle of the cell phone tower kind of debate, and they said this, and they did not say this in a way that was NIMBYism. They weren't sort of this crafted NIMBY opposer. And so I want to be careful to say that but what she said was, she stood up and she said, I think the environmental impact of the cell phone tower would be terrible, blah, 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 and all of the things that people say. And she truly, was contributing to this discussion, right? And then here's what she said at the end. I think there are a lot better sites for this. For instance, in West Gloucester. That's literally the definition of NIMBYism. Not in my backyard. This would be great. This would be the perfect thing if it were in Gloucester.
Yeah, exactly.
That applies to a lot of things that people think about around here. Yeah.
That's what happens. And sometimes it's by design and it's meant to just oppose. But many times it's innocent and it's literally somebody saying, because it's heartfelt for them, they just don't want change. And they say, it's so pretty here. But you know what? We just did a thing on, we just did a big piece on it was called the Wandering Houses of Manchester. And it was a program with the Manchester Historical Museum about the what used to be very common practice, which is moving a house from one place to a totally different place. And it used to be a big spectacle and all this stuff, horses and wheels and all sorts of things. And everyone would come out with their, with their ale in the streets and watch, wow, look at this. It's like a parade, right? Okay. If you look at the pictures of back in the day of Manchester, one house in particular moved 3 times within downtown Manchester. And if you look at a picture,
there was change.
Of this house on the corner of Brook Street and Norwood, which is in the thick of the village, right? You look at it back in the day, it was a pasture. It was nothing. And now there's house. So you know what? I know that people don't like change, but change happens. And change has happened in our history, and change has happened in Gloucester. And most of the changes, by the way, that have impacted the fabric of a town, like Gloucester, a city, or Manchester, it all happened before zoning even existed. All that changes. And guess what? We look at those houses today and we say, oh my gosh, that's so pretty. It's so charming. It's charming. It's the aesthetic of our town. And if we change, we're going to lose the charm. Well,
yeah, they don't ever say, don't put it back where it came from.
Yes.
Well, in the case of the ADUs, I heard your aunt speak about that, Corey, talking about the wonderful culture in Gloucester of, people living in these houses with lots of little attached apartments and not. And, fishermen live there and teachers live there. And as we all say, those are the best examples we always have. But they lived in kind of crazy circumstances, not in the one great big house and then another great big house. So, but nobody wants to return to that.
Well, I think people do. I think that the younger people do have this idea of environmentalism where density really is your friend with global warming, and large houses on these sprawling things with lots of people with their leaf blower doing their grand properties is the worst thing in the world for the environment, period.
Right.
And ADUs actually could be a massive solution about environmentally responsible living. It really is. I mean,
right.
Anyway.
And creative alternatives to living too. It's,
yeah, exactly.
To...
I want my grandkids to live next door to me. Often I want my husband to live next door to me.
It is funny because it's a 30-year argument now about McMansions and SUVs. Because I remember as soon as I started rolling out, even then, people were copying like, this is going to come back to bite us. I mean, does everyone need this? Or do you really need to were you bringing your kids to soccer practice in the Sudan? I remember that was a great line from Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's like, do you need an all-terrain vehicle?
I have a good friend of mine, Martha Keeley. I want to give her credit, Martha Keeley. Back in the 1990, when the kind of the SUV thing first was happening and the McMansions were first happening, I remember she said to me, she looked at me and she goes, it's not enough to have a house anymore. Now you need a house and a half. She goes, and you don't need a chair anymore. You need a chair and a half. And that car is a car and a half.
It's true.
So it's true. It's true.
Unbelievable. Well, thanks for the update, Erica. Well, she'll be following up with you on we got high school graduations coming up. So we'll be looking forward to some great pictures and stories from the cricket. So we will see you in 1 week's time.
Right. Yeah. Shares got bigger too. You're right.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.